Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BrainScratch Commentaries' first sponsored video, actually. Yeah, this is a sponsored video. Square is sponsoring this, and we're here to showcase Final Fantasy XIV because the expansion pack came out, and apparently they want some people to showcase their game for them. That's pretty cool. Ancient Chinese secret. Let's players help sell video games. What we're actually seeing here, this CG video plays if you let the title screen sit for too long, but this is actually the ending, technically, of Final Fantasy XIV's original run. And how they did this is actually kind of genius in my book, because during the last moments of the original server's online time, you had this massive glowing red moon just glowing in the sky, and the sky was storming, and it was all doomsday. And then, you know, you had whatever players were still left on the game. It was free to play at the time. You know, just hanging around, chatting, waiting for the end. Some of them took some group photos with each other.
Oh, what? Selfie in front of the apocalypse? People would do that, wouldn't they?
Group photos in front of the apocalypse. And then at the very last second when the servers went down, this CG outro played. Basically, the entire world gets blown to heck and gone.
So they played this specific CG opening for the...
Yeah.
Or ending, I should say. Wow, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, right up until the fade to white where the bearded wizard elf guy gets basically vaporized. That's where Final Fantasy XIV vanilla version ended. Now, Final Fantasy XIV, and, you know, I don't even have to mince words about this because Square themselves admitted it, was a pretty bare-bones and terrible game. It had some nice elements, like the cutscene presentation was actually a lot better in the original version than it was here, and the graphics were so good that most people couldn't run the damn thing. So, yeah. You know, they publicly admitted it was in a pretty sorry state, and they made it free to play for whoever had already bought it. Up until I don't know exactly how it ran. Enough patches to keep the story going. And then this happened, and then it went offline for a while, and it couldn't have been that long before A Realm Reborn went live that the original version was taken off, because when this CG outro played at the end of the first game's run, there was a banner splash page for A Realm Reborn. A Realm Reborn's been out for a while now, and general opinion seems to be that it's a really good MMORPG.
Well, one of the best I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but praise for Realm Reborn. Heaven's Word is the new expansion that just came out.
Heaven's Ward.
Heaven's Ward.
I'm not sure if that's Heaven's Ward as in going towards the heavens, or Heaven's Ward as in warding off the heavens. It might be both, actually, because there's a lot of heavens, you know, attacking the earth here in this intro, and you also get stuff like flying mounts and all that in the expansion. So yeah, it's not exactly unheard of in the genre. Like World of Warcraft also has some flying mounts. And there was that whole hullabaloo about their recent expansion not letting you use them until Blizzard said, okay, we'll let you use them, but you have to fulfill these requirements.
Well, World of Warcraft also gets a new expansion, it seems like every year, as well. This Realm Reborn was out for a pretty good amount of time before the Heaven's Word expansion came out, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, keeping in mind, this is just the first proper expansion that adds new ground to the game. There's a whole city-state that they add, and new territory and stuff. New story content, which I hear is actually significantly better than the story content in the original game. But between the release of A Realm Reborn and the expansion, they did release patch updates that added story content and stuff. So, you know, again, pretty standard for the genre. But this is the first official expansion to the game, not counting A Realm Reborn itself, I suppose.
So it's safe to say that aesthetically, Final Fantasy XIV, either A Realm Reborn or the original, is pretty much just like a hodgepodge of all things Final Fantasy. You know, I see the CGI intro, and I'm reminded heavily of a lot of key events that happened in previous Final Fantasy. It's like, is it safe to assume this is Bahamut or Bahamut?
Yeah, that's Bahamut. In fact, a shorter version of this intro, kind of like a recap, plays when you first start the game, and it does mention that it is Bahamut. It also mentions like the name of the world, This is the Lesser Moon Dalamud. At the end of the first game, what was basically happening was the Garlean Empire was pulling this little moon out of the sky, basically trying to use it to nuke the country of Eorzea.
They were pulling a Majora's Mask, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, and what they didn't know was that there was a frickin' dragon god trapped inside the moon, and when it came down, the moon opened up, Bahamut came out, and basically wrecked everything.
Oh, that's a straight up Final Fantasy IV kind of thing, because you found Bahamut in the moon in that game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. He lived in the moon.
Yeah.
Nice little apartment complex. And the rent is extremely cheap.
Well, it seems like they're going for a lot of older Final Fantasy kind of stuff, vibes in this, from what I've seen. Not only in the visuals, but I believe Umatsu did the music for 14.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of great remixes from what I've heard. Like, I haven't been to... I haven't tried it because I don't really have the time for an MMO personally, but I have gone up and listened to the music, and there's a lot of great remixes of old Final Fantasy themes. Like, there's a great remix, I believe, of the Final Fantasy III boss theme, which is one of my favorites. So
I think it's the Final Fantasy II boss theme, but...
They might have both.
Did they add the FF3 boss theme in a later soundtrack?
I think the better answer is, who cares? Nobuo Uematsu returned to make the soundtrack for Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
That's all that matters to me. I love the man's work.
Did he do all of the music, or just some of it?
He returned for the soundtrack. I will not repeat myself. That's all that matters.
Well, what I mean more is he returned for the soundtrack, but did he do all the music, or did he just do the first run of the soundtrack?
From what I saw on the credits, it just said main theme composer, so I'm not sure if he did like the full music, but he at least did some of it.
And I just checked, it was definitely Final Fantasy III's boss theme. It was for a Crystal Tower dungeon, I think. I think it was for the last boss of that dungeon that theme plays in. It's one of my favorites, so...
Yeah. As you say that, there's a strangely crystalline tower on screen that might have actually been the same place we were talking.
How appropriate.
Now, I'm not sure if this particular bunch is an actual group of characters in the game, or if they're just there to represent the player's party, because I haven't seen these guys yet. I've seen the guys who were praying earlier. They're characters that you met both in the original and in this game, depending on what city you start in, actually. But, yeah, somehow they got teleported, I'm assuming 5 years in the future, and yet their chocobos still answer them when they whistle. That's pretty impressive.
Chocobos!
I'm not actually sure what's happening in this part of the intro. All I know is, after the fade to white, it's all new stuff that they introduced for this game. And, you know, grass is green, the sky is blue, Square Enix does scarily good CGI animation.
This has always been the case. the CGI from Final Fantasy games has always been scarily good. Like,
yeah, well, it's like they're like one of the first, if not the first, to do CG during the PlayStation 1 era that didn't completely terrify you when you saw it. So, but yeah. Anyway, this isn't going to be a straight up run of footage. It's actually going to be a bit of a showcase that fades through several different aspects of the game. First off, I'm waking up at the inn because you get free inn rooms in this game where you can keep your special items, check your old cutscenes. In fact, let's check one of those cutscenes now because I want to get at least one cutscene into this video. And actually, the cutscenes show you in whatever gear you're already wearing, so you can watch beginning of the game cutscenes where your character is all decked out in endgame gear, or in my case, just in regular clothes, because ever since I started playing the Elder Scrolls games, I do this for some reason.
So it basically runs your character in real time, even in cutscenes.
Yeah. The game runs everything in real time except the CG, I think. And well, the cutscenes aren't as dynamically animated as in the original Final Fantasy XIV. I don't think there are any cutscenes that reach that level of cinematic in this version, but they're all pretty good. The English voice acting could be better, but I like this guy's voice actor, which is why I decided to include him.
I don't think it's I think it's safe to say that a lot of games, MMO or otherwise, don't have real-time cutscenes that are as gorgeous looking as the CG intro or outros, because the intros and outros are meant to pull you in. And, well, But judging by the intro of Final Fantasy XIV, where we were born, we just saw there. Oh yeah, I'm pulled in. Like the moment I saw the Magitech armor, I was like, hey, I love Magitech armor.
I didn't manage to squeeze it into this video, but several times while I played through this game, I've seen players just rampage by me on full Magitech armor. Like, we're talking huge Magitech armor as their mount. You can have stuff like chocobos and a dragon, but Magitech armor. I want one.
Now, I'm just kind of imagining a parking lot in one of these giant cities where you see, like, a Magitech armor and a chocobo just sitting next to each other, and, like, the chocobo, like...
Yeah, someone riding their Magitech armor, reaching out to get a ticket to park.
Yeah.
Just fighting a
Did
spot.
somebody get the number on that Magitech armor?
There's no spots left.
Oh yeah, and this is the first boss in the story mode. The apparently, well, I think this is just the first story boss, but this boss you actually have to fight solo, which was kind of disappointing because when I got here while I was playing with my friend, we actually had to break up our party for this one boss fight. But I think it's because we've got this guy with us for that boss fight, and he just basically automatically heals you every time you get to low health. It's really a tutorial boss fight. But I'm not going to include the boss fight because sadly you can't fight them from the cutscene book.
Now, I'm not too familiar with MMOs, so how does combat work in this game, exactly?
Well, for our viewers who are familiar with the basic World of Warcraft template, I'm not sure if World of Warcraft did that first. It's just the one that's most, commonly known, so please don't jump down my throat with corrections if I'm wrong. But it works basically the same way, except this game has an actual gamepad interface that's worth a darn. You have your auto attacks, and then you have special attacks that have fairly short cooldowns, actually, except for specific ones that you can fire off maybe once a minute or so. And you basically, well, if you're solo, you're mostly just trying to pummel the enemy into submission and not die. If you're in a party, every character has their own role that they're meant to fulfill in the party strategy, and you're supposed to help each other out. And trust me, you are not going to win at the later game stuff if everyone just tries to do their own thing. You're just not. Don't try it.
Teamwork is essential, then I take it.
Yeah, for the late game stuff at the very least. There's this one boss fight in a later. I'm not sure if it's optional, but you fight basically two versions of Odin. One is a recurring side quest, and one is a big super boss quest. And I've been told the super boss one is like you need a full party at the absolute top of their game, otherwise you're going to die.
That's Odin.
Yeah, Odin has Zentetsuken, and once he gets down to a certain health threshold, he starts charging it up, and if he charges that sucker up, everyone in the area dies instantly, even if he's being dogpiled by like 400 people at once.
That's pretty cool, actually, because that's basically what Odin did as a summon in earlier Final Fantasy games, is he had a chance to instant kill everybody, which was awesome.
Yeah, he actually did run on a timer in at least Final Fantasy VIII. He might have done it in another version of his boss fight too.
Four, I think you had a time limit to get everybody to kill him
to beat the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I'm taking now are, I think they're called guild levies or guild leaves. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but basically they're recurring side quests that you can take at the Adventurers Guild, and you get 3 allowance points to take these quests per day. This character's been sitting unused for a while because I haven't felt like playing my gladiator character in a while, so she's got 100s just gathered up from the time I've been letting her collect dust.
That baby behemoth is adorable.
There's a baby, but wait.
Yeah, that the little purple dog on the floor.
That's a behemoth?
It says baby behemoth.
Oh, look at the man-eating abomination. It's so cute.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think that one might be a microtransaction item from the Mog Station network. There are just some extra vanity items you can get up there for a couple dollars a piece. Like, you can buy Odin's horse and ride that as a personal mount.
Available at the Final Fantasy XIV PetSmart.
Yeah, but I think to use Odin's horse, you need to get a chocobo first, so... not exactly an advantage there, just a shinier mount to ride around.
Slightly off topic, it looks like you're using a mouse control, but you're actually using this on the PS4. How does that work? Are you using the touch thing on there?
This is the PlayStation 4 version. They provided that for this promotion, by the way. And the PlayStation 4, much like the PlayStation 3, and I actually didn't know this when I started my Let's Play on the other channel, the PlayStation 3 accepts mouse input for this game, and so does the PlayStation 4. But the PlayStation 4 differs from the PlayStation 3 version in that it has full keyboard and mouse gameplay support in the UI. So you can play this exactly like you would play the PC version if you want. Crafting mission go. And yeah, I'm fading through this because it would be extremely tedious to watch me buy individual items and stuff. But the crafting system is actually pretty interesting in that it's active. You can't just, say craft this and then go play your 3DS for 30 seconds while your character works. Which is actually is what I like about the crafting and gathering in this game, is that it keeps you engaged. You have to think about how you're going to approach it. Do I take the risk and do something that might lower my probability of success for a higher quality item, or do I just go for the sure thing and try to win? Since I'm just trying to hand in a quest item, I'm not going to bother with trying to increase my equipment's quality or anything. But you have... basically what you have to do is you keep mending it until the durability goes down, and if you can get that progress bar to the end before it hits 0, you're good. There's an ability here that lets you mend your durability, get it back up a certain amount. Then there's an ability that temporarily increases your chances of success so that you don't screw up while you're crafting stuff.
They made a minigame out of synthesis.
Crafting and gathering is actually very, 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 very common in MMORPGs. They just did the system so well in this game. I love it. In your bread and butter MMORPG, when you gather something or craft something, basically you just tell your character to do something and they do it. It's very set it and forget it, especially with stuff like mining. In the other RPGs I played with mining, even single-player ones like Skyrim, you click a mining spot and then your character just automatically swings their pickaxe for a little while and you get items. Not so in this game.
That's why, gathering stuff and crafting stuff tends to be one of the more, I don't want to say forgettable, but it tends to feel like busy work in a lot of RPGs, is because...
It tends to feel like busy work, but for some reason it's really addictive busy work. I can't really explain why that is. It's just... It hits your hoarder buttons.
Well, having a process to do it and to especially potentially make armor and stuff that's better than normal. It actually reminds me of a game I played called Fantasy Life, which is a completely different kind of beast. But in that game, you could also forge armor, and if you did a good job actually forging it instead of just mashing the auto button, you could have a better result in the end. So I think that's actually pretty cool that if you put in effort, you are rewarded for that, and that's pretty neat.
Well, anyway, segueing back into what's on screen, this is an FATE, Fate, or Full Active Time event. These are recurring side quests that appear in real time out in the field, just everywhere. And basically, this is going to be your main source of grinding rather than just killing random monsters. Get together with a party of other adventurers, take on the mini boss, FATEs in particular. You need a party for, because as I'm going to demonstrate later, you can't really solo those things.
So wait, they're pronounced FATEs.
Yeah, FATEs, Fates. I'm not really sure how you're meant to say them. Nobody in game actually verbally talks about them. So, just call them whatever you want.
Call whatever you want, baby.
Yeah, it's all the same when you type it in the chat box. One of the things about FATEs, though, is that you have to level sync if you're too high. So you can't just be way over-leveled and completely face roll a thing. Although, the level sync in this case is like 4 levels higher than the recommended setting, so I'm still 2-hitting these monsters.
What's a level sync for the plebeians like me?
What the level sync does is when it prompts you to level sync and you accept it, it dials down all your stats and what abilities you have access to match the level that the quest permits, which is usually a few levels higher than the level listed over there. Right now, I think I'm like level 9. Or I'm synced down to level 9, in spite of being a level 10 class. No, I'm synced down to level 10, actually. A whole 5 levels above. Wow, that's unusual. In spite of being like level 15 or 16.
Okay.
Actually.
So it brings you down to a level where the quest is more difficult. Basically,
it brings you down to a level where the quest is vaguely balanced. Basically,
is there any benefit to doing this for you then?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I still get a decent chunk of experience out of it, although I still want to focus on FATEs that are closer to my level. One thing to keep in mind in Final Fantasy XIV, though, is that you can multiclass in this game, and it's a very interesting multiclass system. Essentially, you change the weapon, or in some cases, tool in your main hand, and you'll switch to other classes. And each class, including the crafting and gathering jobs, has its own individual levels and stats. So you might be level 50 in Gladiator, but you decide really late game, hey, I want to try being a hand-to-hand fighter. So you go join the pugilists, the hand-to-hand fighters guild. I don't know how you say that. And you start at level 1 in that class, so you're going to be back to level 1 stats for however long you're in that class. And they do accelerate EXP growth for classes that are way behind your other classes, but you'll still want to do stuff like low-level FATEs to level those classes up.
Can you be a red mage, blue mage?
So you could potentially be a level 50 in everything. And
you can, yeah, if you really, really put a lot of time into it.
Oh, well,
the other thing, though, is that much like Final Fantasy V's job system, you can mix and match certain abilities between classes. I haven't really gotten too deep into this, but in one of my other characters that I show off, I don't actually use it in this video, but that character plays as a rogue and has a healing spell attached to her because she actually had to start off as an Arcanist. The rogue class in this game is actually a class they added in a later patch, and you can't start out as it. You have to find the rogue's guild in the game to get the class.
You gotta have a reason to becoming a rogue.
Yeah, and there's story justification for why you can't start out as one, but I think it's mostly because they just didn't have it at the very beginning of the game.
Are there other classes that are like that you have to find in order to become?
There are job specializations that you can get when you level up more than one class to a certain level. I don't know exactly how it works because I haven't gotten that far. Also, there's sometimes in FATEs like this one, there are optional bounty enemies that are bigger and harder to kill, and I'm gonna kill one. Back to the job system, though. Apart from rogue class, there aren't really any classes that you can't start out as, but there are jobs which are more like class specializations, and I think Heavensward adds 3 or 4 of them, including the Dark Knight class, and I think the Machinist class. The others are escaping my mind right now. I can't use any of them because I don't have the expansion on the PlayStation 4, but it all looks really interesting. I want to get to the late game stuff so that I can experiment with this stuff, but I'm still at the beginning of the game. The reason I'm still at the beginning of the game is there's so much stuff to do in the opening areas. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's an MMO.
Yeah. Well, it's like my frame of reference for this kind of game, a really story-based MMO, is actually Star Wars The Old Republic. And in Star Wars The Old Republic, you get to level 10 in your starting planet, and there's barely anything to do there except enough side quests to get you to level 10. And then after you get to level 10 and complete the story quest for level 10, you can leave the planet and, go on your merry way. Here, there's a similar thing going on with the 3 starting city-states, but you have to complete the level 15 story quest to get out into the wider world. And there's still an endless amount of stuff to do while you're doing that. It's very, very open and not at all constricted, and I love it for that. I will say the very beginning of this game is still kind of a bit slow, because for your first couple levels, if you're very thorough at exploring the town you start out in, you could spend like an hour or 2 just doing non-combat quests.
I think you just have to have a different mentality when approaching an MMO.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're playing something like an MMO, whether it be Final Fantasy XIV or anything other, you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And if you're in it for the long haul, you gotta have patience. And
Yeah.
you said that you have to be at level 15 to complete this one quest so that you can get out more in the world.
Yeah.
I believe that was just to make sure they wanted to know that you're capable of taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So that you don't get killed by the dark behemoth that's just above the hill.
Yeah, I'm getting the feeling that if you walked into the like, how in a lot of like traditional RPGs there'll be that guy at the gate who's like, oh, you can't pass without permission, it's too dangerous, and then you walk out and these monsters are fine. I'm thinking in an MMO, you walk out there, he's like, don't go, it's too dangerous, and you're like, pfft, and then a level 50 monster comes over and flicks you, and you're dead. So.
Well, if you're gonna be that arrogant, it's not even the big ass demon. It's the rock you tripped on.
Too bad we don't have Kina with Limit Glove.
Well,